Morialta.
Sir, 500 years ago this very day, Martin Luther, former Augustinian monk, ordained Catholic priest and Doctor of Theology at Wittenberg University, wrote a scholarly presentation to his bishop protesting at the Church's practice of selling indulgences, taking coin and in return granting absolution from sins. One account suggests that he did so by nailing his essay, now known as the 95 Theses, to the Wittenberg Castle Church door. And whether or not that story is true or apocryphal, I prefer to believe that's how it happened. I can tell you now, having been to Wittenberg to have a look at the church door, it would be hard to do again. The door has now been replaced with vast bronze gates inscribed with the 95 Theses for all to read forevermore. In doing so, Luther set off a chain of events that led directly to the Reformation, a tide of upheaval across Europe and the world wherever the Christian message had been spread. The evangelical church founded by Luther, he would have been appalled at the idea of a church being named after him, spread its teachings according to his catechisms. Other Protestant movements spread, and in time the Catholic Church too changed its practices and adapted. Luther was in correspondence with them all, sharing theological arguments and influencing most of the political and religious thinkers of his time in one way or another. He was an extraordinary figure, a complex man whose willingness to challenge institutions and authorities if they were concealing the truth emboldened many others to follow their principles, even if it came at a great cost. And it's no coincidence, of course, that Martin Luther King Jr. shared the same name and embodied that integrity which was instilled in him from birth. Luther's translation of the Bible into German was transformational. Conduct of services in the languages of the congregation rather than Latin ensured that the Word of God could be accessible to all. Most importantly, Luther called the Church back to its basic task, to help humans receive forgiveness from sin as God's free gift, rather than a commodity that could be bought or sold. He had a good deal to say about politics, members might be interested to know. His theology of the two kingdoms argued firmly for the separation of church and state, as Christ instructed us to render unto Caesar the things that are Caesar, and unto God those that are God's. Many of the freedoms today we enjoy come as a result of the Reformation. Luther teaches that the task of government is to ensure the common good, not to impose Christian belief or morality, but to legislate what is just. And in turn, he argued that government must not overstep its domain to impose transient ideology on the church or the private lives of its citizens. Limited government, constitutional government, government under the law. He would have been no fan of the nanny state. And if anyone wants to challenge my theology, that last paragraph I got from Dr. John Kleinig, formerly of the Lutheran Seminary, who I spoke to about this morning, a tremendous fellow. The task of government is to maintain good order and justice for its citizens. The task of the Church is to provide forgiveness of sins. I turn to the Lutheran influence in South Australia, which is tremendously important. It started in Prussia. In the early decades of the 19th century, Kaiser Friedrich Wilhelm III was attempting to impose the Reformed Union Church, of which he was also the bishop, upon the whole population. Lutherans whose families had practiced their faith for centuries were persecuted. By the 1830s, Lutheran churches were outlawed, Lutherans were jailed for maintaining their theological understandings, and pastors had to conduct their ministry in secret. Many looked to leave and find new homes. And so, with financial help from George Fife Angus, in 1838, Pastor A.L.C. Carvel, followed by 2 years later by Pastor G.D. Fritsche, brought their congregations to South Australia at great personal cost and with great suffering and hardship. Many died en route. These communities formed an integral part of our young state and have contributed to it ever since in increasing ways. The fact that this state gave them the freedom to flourish is a credit to our history and testament to why they have been able to give so much in return to our state. I know Pastor Fritsch's role in particular in the establishment of the town of Lobethal in my electorate in May 1842, 175 years ago, and Butcher Fritsch of that town, of course, who has given us our name for processed meat. Subsequent waves of migration in the years since have brought many more Lutherans, and their mission has seen many people from different backgrounds, including myself, find their faith strengthened through the Lutheran Church. Those early settlers who gave up so much would have been very pleased, I believe, to see the Lutheran congregations of the Adelaide Adelaide Hills, Birdwood, Lobethal, Springhead, Woodside, Springton and Eden Valley joined together with many local Christians to share in worship on Sunday the 22nd of October at Lobethal. It was a special day and I was pleased to be joined by the member for Carville and Dan Cregan, the Liberal candidate for Carville, in the celebrations. The church was overflowing. Many people came in period costume and indeed Tom Playford, I saw, the son of the Premier, was outstanding as a town crier. Many came as dressed as Luther or Melanchthon. The pastor, David Kuss, and the other pastors led a wonderful service, and on this special anniversary I thank them for their spiritual leadership in our community, particularly on this occasion.
Napier.
Thank you, Deputy